More of the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
All right, welcome back in. 4:17 is the time for the Princeton Orthopedic Associates Studios. We're getting ready for the semifinals of the Ivy League tournament that's going to come your way on Saturday between Penn and Princeton. Should be a great game at the Cathedral of College Basketball. The Palestra now joining us is the head coach of Penn, and that's our good friend Steve Donahue, who's kind enough to hop on board with us right now. Coach, thanks so much for hopping on with us, and how are you?
I'm doing great, Zach. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on, and we do appreciate it. I was watching the game last Saturday up against Harvard. Coach, that was some crazy final few minutes of basketball and a nice game-winning three by Jackson Donahue. How about the final sequences of that game?
It was, Zach. It was obviously a very unique situation for this league where we're fighting to get into the first-ever tournament. I thought it brought an incredible environment in the Palestra. We had a nice crowd, and the game was well played, and it was fun. It was fun to be a part of. And then, I thought both teams made plays down the stretch. We essentially had the ball last, and Jackson Donahue stepped up and made a big shot.
Your team right now, game under 500, but they do have a fighting chance to find a way to get into the NCAA tournament with 2 more wins. It will start on Saturday up against Princeton. Coach, tell me a little bit about this year's team.
It's been a very interesting year. We play a very difficult schedule. I think we have number 2 beside Princeton in our league, and we had a couple top 100 wins at UCF and at LaSalle, and we got into the league and started off 0-6. Did not play well. Essentially started going young and really played 2 freshmen more than I had, and after that point, I thought we started playing really inspired basketball. Just didn't feel sorry for ourselves, and obviously the tournament being the carrot that can motivate you. I thought it was for the first time we could play and try to win this.
I know you're focused on this game coming up on Saturday, but for the future of your program, you have 2 promising young players, both freshmen, and AJ and also Ryan. How about their game in year number 1? AJ was started off terrific and has played really well. He's a very good defender besides being a really good offensive player. And at 6'8", I can play him 35 minutes. He has a great motor. The surprise has probably been Ryan Bentley. Ryan came in, broke his hand right around before Christmas and didn't play the first 2 months of the year. And he's basically been our leading scorer the last 8 games. With that, we have a 3rd freshman in Dev Goodman, and he's come out and really helped us as well, handling the ball, making plays on defense. So all 3 have really done a great job down the stretch here. You're in your second year as the head coach of Penn, as we're talking to Steve Donahue, and clearly you're very familiar with the Ivy League. Last year went 11-17. This year you get into this inaugural Ivy League tournament. How far away do you think your team is when you have a little bit more consistency in terms of wins and losses with this program?
Well, Zach, I think the league is really good. I think that's probably the difference even since I left my last year at Cornell in 2010. I think the main difference is there are no bad teams. Back then we would typically have 3, 4, maybe 5 teams over 300 in the RPI. That just doesn't exist anymore. I feel comfortable with where we're at. We need another great class, which I think we have coming in, and honestly I think we need to continue to build and get another class. Princeton, Yale, and Harvard in particular have 3 really good programs. Guys have been there for years, have won consistently, and we got to build it up through our recruiting and to hope that we can continue to challenge for titles.
Going back to your days at Cornell, you know what it's like to go on one of these massive win streaks in the Ivy, and Princeton's doing that right now. They've won 17 straight games in a row. Mitch Henderson was just named the Ivy Coach of the Year. When you look at this Princeton team, they're clicking on all cylinders right now, but what impresses you the most about this Tigers club?
Well, I think the thing that impressed me the most is just from where they came from. You lose Caruso and Hans Braz, and not only don't you miss a beat, you get better. There are no weaknesses with the squad. They know how to play on offense. Their strength to me is their defense. They just make it very difficult to get good looks, and they don't foul, and they turn you over. So here's a team that
keeps you away from the rim, doesn't foul you, and still turns you over. Pretty impressive.
No one wants to see injuries in this sport, and then it's your job as a coach, though. No one's going to feel sorry for you when you lose some players. You got to keep on plugging away at it. When you lose a pretty important player as a coach, how do you find those other ways to try to win basketball games like what Mitch Henderson has done?
Well, I think the thing they probably when it happened is I think they initially thought they were going to be such a good offensive team with all those weapons that they could play a lot faster and score in the 80s. And I think to me anyway, after those two injuries, I think they figured out that they probably can be better off if they lower the possessions, really guard like they can, and then just be efficient on offense. And that's what they've done. I think they've done a very good job of utilizing the three and as I said, really guarding you by limiting the possessions and making it very difficult to score. And that being said, the replacement players, in particular Stevens, has done a great job not only replacing them as well, if not better, and deserving of a first-team All-Ivy.
A lot of names that we're talking about, and their depth is very impressive, even with the two players they lost in Hans and also Caruso. But that depth, you take a look at a player like Amir Bell, who was starting the beginning of the year and now is coming off the bench. Is that sometimes difficult to get a player to buy in that goes from a starter and then ends up becoming a pretty darn good player off the bench?
Zach, it's incredibly difficult, and it speaks volumes, one, for Amir to be his ability to accept after really being a star for 2 years and then be willing to come off the bench because he was struggling and then take his game to another level after getting used to that role. And it's also a credit to what Mitch has done with the program, that you have kids in there that care about winning first and foremost, and Amir Bell's made them a much better basketball team, in particular in the league, with his ability to come off the bench, make shots, defend different players, and just understand his role.
And then when you take a look also at their main player, Stephen Cook, this is someone, even though you lost to them twice, you guys have done a very good job defending him. Only 5 points for Cook in the last 2 games when you guys played each other. When you try to match him up, what are some things that you stress so much to your team that obviously they're executing when you play him?
Well, I think Princeton in general, Zach, is a team that you got to know their strengths and weaknesses. They're not your typical Princeton run this, and whoever happens to be running that Princeton offense is going to get the shot. I think they're very unique, and you try to figure out where Stephen's very successful. Listen, he's very athletic. His ability to stretch the floors is hard to guard, but what makes him really good is his ability to score in different ways off the bounce. I think we've been fortunate more than anything else. They were successful in beating us twice. It's probably not necessary that his scores. We're going to try to do a really good job on all of them, including him.
Coach, this is going to be a fun game on Saturday, and this Penn-Princeton rivalry is one of the more underappreciated rivalries in college basketball. Obviously, it doesn't get the same hype as a Duke-UNC, but it's been a very good rivalry playing games since 1903 on a consecutive basis. What is it like for you to be a part of this Penn-Princeton rivalry that will have another chapter unfolding on Saturday?
No, I would agree with you. I think it's, for years, was the best in college basketball because there's that much online. Unlike Duke and North Carolina, they're all advancing to the NCAA tournament. This was really deciding our league for all those years, and the passion that the two teams played with, the proximity of the universities, and obviously the dominance of the league. I loved it as an assistant. I love being back. I think it's pretty unique that we get to play in the first tournament together in the Palestra. It's awesome. It's exciting for us as a program, and I'm hoping everyone around the league enjoys the opportunity to see these two teams go at it at the Palestra.
And it doesn't get much better than playing in the Cathedral of college basketball. For you, you get to play there a lot more often than others, obviously, being in your home court for Penn, but it's just an unbelievable building. When you got to walk in there for the first time as the head coach of Penn last year, what do you remember about walking into the Palestra? Obviously, you played there before.
Yeah, Zach, I've been here so often as a kid, and then I spent 10 years as an assistant. Even then, though, it's kind of surreal, because I've never really thought I'd ever be the head coach at Penn. So it's something I'm very appreciative and I don't take for granted. It is a very unique building, and Penn's a place that really cares about college basketball. Philly is a city that cares about college basketball. We had a high school game here last week. We had 99,000 people in here. It's a great place. It's an incredible place to be a spectator, and it's obviously a great place to play and coach as well.
Being obviously learning under Fran Dunphy, what did Coach Dunphy say to you when you took over the job at Penn?
If you know Dunphy a little bit, he's a man of very limited words. He congratulated me, and more than that, he's just always there if I ever need anything. But more than anybody else, he understands there is a unique pressure that comes with being the head coach at Penn and being the keeper of the Palestra. I think he understands that, and he's there for me, as I said, but nothing more than that. And as I said, I'm very fortunate to be able to coach a sport I love at a place I love.
Staying in the Big Five, since we did bring up Fran's squad and the job that Fran's done at Temple, but if you look at the Big Five this year, it's obviously led by the team that led it last year in Villanova, who won the national championship. That job that Jay's doing right now, you knew they were going to be good again this year, but Coach, they got a legitimate chance to repeat, and the way that Jay has really continued the success of that program, it's really remarkable to watch.
It really is. It's hard to imagine that you lose two leaders like Uchefu and Archidiakono, and you don't miss a beat. I think they're fortunate in this world of college basketball that they return seniors that are not just seniors. These are probably NBA players that are staying around for 4 years, and I think that's part of it, but it's the culture that Jay has developed. I've seen it up close. There's everything that you guys see on the court that comes out. It's basically how they live it. It's a program that's based on winning and not who gets credit for it. And Villanova, and I agree with you, I think they have every chance to get to a Final Four again this season.
Coach, obviously everyone knows what's at stake as we're talking to Steve Donahue. This week in practice, when you take a pulse of your players, most of them uptight, or is it a little bit loose right now at Penn?
You know, Zach, we were, after we won 5 straight, I think we got into the Columbia game. Whether we knew it or not, if we won that game, that was 2 Saturdays ago, we were in. We played tight, and then we got a week to digest, and Dartmouth came in here, and we played tight again. I sensed a change from what I saw over the last 3 weekends. Saturday, which could tell you we should have been tight, they played as loose and as aggressive, and as I said, they were willing to make mistakes, and I really felt that they came out and played our best game of the season. And I sensed the same. I think they're excited about the opportunity, play a great Princeton team in the Palestra, national TV, a day off from Selection Sunday. All those things are allowing these kids to just go out, and I think when we were 0-6, we never were really sure if we'd ever get this opportunity. So it's kind of like we're playing with a little house money, and the kids are playing with the attitude I think you need when you play in this type of environment.
Not a bad thing to be playing with house money. Steve Donahue, before we let you run, let's take me in a little bit to your locker room before tip on Saturday. You're making a speech to your team with the whiteboard behind you, getting all ready to go, get the boys fired up. What are your major points of emphasis before your team takes the court up against Princeton?
I think the major thing, Zach, is that you got to embrace that the game that Princeton puts you through, in particular on the offensive end and more on the defensive end, that they're not going to give you anything easy. So if this game is in the 50s, you got to embrace it's in the 50s. If they're going to guard you for 25 seconds, you got to make sure you utilize the last 5 and execute as well as you can. There's no understanding that this is not going to be hard. This is going to be an extremely difficult game, and you got to look forward to that. It's kind of what we're trying to say to all these guys, that this is a great basketball team, and we got an opportunity to play, and you got to understand the challenge ahead, but it's not going to be easy, and get ready for that, and hopefully enjoy that, and as I said, embrace it.
Coach, thanks so much. We appreciate it. Good luck the rest of the way.
I appreciate it, Zach. Thanks.